Hello, Mr. Randy here. Welcome to week 2. You've survived 1 week. We are, of course, just going to build upon the things that we started last week. So here's our first part for the week. Rather simple part. You have a few options here on how you start this one. You could start this on the top plane and sketch this L shape here to this kind of phantom line right there, this shape right here. That's doable. You could start on the front plane and draw that shape right there. Normally, depending on how this was dimensioned, you could start on the right plane and draw this rectangle. However, because I have the overall length there broken up as 2 separate dimensions, it would really be 50 plus 25. And because we can't do any math, this really is not a valid start point to start on the right plane. Had I given you this overall dimension instead of these 2 separate ones, that would have been a doable thing. But for the way this is dimensioned, which is really not a great way to dimension, however, we can't really start on the right plane. But let's take a look at both options just so you can see what that means. So we'll click into SolidWorks here, and we'll start metric part here. And let's do the front plane option first. I'll start on the front plane with a sketch. And we'll start with a line tool. I'm just going to type the S key. I'll use that a lot today, just to get you in the habit. And I'm going to attach the origin right there. Again, for this part, really doesn't matter where the origin is. And now I'll just do a tangent curve, and I'm going to show you a trick here. I'm going to do that again. Let's delete that line. I'm going to draw this line segment. Now normally what you would think is that you'd have to come up here and click on the tangent arc button to create a tangent arc. However, there is a shortcut in SolidWorks. So when you're in the line tool, if you go back and touch, I'm not holding the mouse button down, if I go back and touch that endpoint right there, see the little double circle there, I peel out and it automatically switches to a tangent arc. And then if I were to continue on, notice if you look at my icon, my cursor, it's back to being a pencil with a line, so it's back in the line tool. So that's a little shortcut, and we'll try to use that on and off in the coming days just to get you used to that. I'm ready to dimension, so again I'm going to type S. I just keep my finger on the S key on the keyboard when I'm working, so I can get that real quick. And we'll go 90. And then we have a height. I can get it off this way or this way. I'm going to just take it over here, of 100. And we're going to extrude that 25 millimeters deep here. So let's go to Feature, Extrude. It really doesn't matter which direction we go either. You can flip direction just by clicking on this button right here next to where it says blind. If I click on that button, it just reverses direction. Again, it doesn't really make any difference for this part. So we'll just hit OK. Now, to create this feature, again, there are a variety of ways I could do that. So I could sketch on this face and do a rectangle out here, like so. I'm going to have to use a relation to get it attached here. So I could do a relation. I could pick either this line and this edge and make them collinear. I could have also picked the 2 points and assign them. And then I could put the dimensions in here and extrude this 25 millimeters. That would be one way I could do that. I'm going to cancel that sketch. Technically, I could sketch on the top plane. I could start a sketch. And I could go a rectangle from this corner out like that. I'm going to do it this way just to show you a different option for doing extrudes. And so let's dimension this. This is 50 millimeters, and this is 25. It's fully defined, and I'm going to kind of rotate this around so you kind of see what's happening there. Now I'm going to do an extrude. So we're going to click on Features and Extrude, and we've got to go the other direction, as you can see. Now, one might be inclined to put 100 millimeters in here and hit OK. However, I used this dimension when I created my base sketch here. I put that 100 millimeter height in. And so that dimension's gone. We can't use it again. We don't want a duplicate dimension in here to mess up our model. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to go ahead and extrude this to 100 millimeters. Again, let's say that you got this part back from the drawing checker, and this was supposed to be 110 millimeters. So you go back to your base sketch, and you would double click that dimension and make it 110 and hit OK, and now your model has a problem. Now, I know it's not a big deal to go in and edit two features, but that shouldn't happen. I should be able to fix this one dimension, and everything else should heal itself. Okay? What we want to do on this boss extrude, I'm going to edit that feature, is instead of doing a blind 100 millimeter extrude, which is what I did, we're going to pull this down and we're going to say up to surface. Okay, up to surface. We use this quite a bit. Up to surface, and I'm going to pick the bottom surface of the part and hit OK. Now, if we take a look at the boss extrude, I'll double click that, we can see the dimensions that were created. It created the two sketch dimensions that I gave, and it created a 25 millimeter dimension for the depth of that extrude. And if I double click on the boss extrude now, you'll notice that I have the 50 and 25 that were in the sketch, but there's no height dimension because this edge is tied to this edge. So if I edit this sketch, if I change this dimension, let's change it dramatically, and rebuild, these surfaces just stay together. The part automatically fixes itself. Again, we want to be real careful that we don't add any dimensional information. Now, we have this nose sticking out here. We need to deal with that. We're going to sketch on this front face. Again, remember we want to cut holes separately. So we're just going to sketch that outside circle. I'm going to go normal 2 here. And so I'm going to do a circle. I'm going to touch the edge here, this round edge. And you'll notice the center point is lit up. I'm going to drag in now, click on that center point, draw that circle. I'll type in S. We'll switch to the dimension tool. I'll click it in. One habit to get into is not to do this kind of a diameter dimension, because down the road, if we have to detail this part in a 2D drawing, it's going to want to give us that style, and that's not typically, although for a cylindrical form that might be what we want. But especially for holes, make sure that you get a leader. It'll just make your life easier. It doesn't matter, I won't mark it wrong, but it'll make your life easier down the road if we were to detail this part as a 2D drawing, a multi-view drawing. So I'm going to click over here and put in a diameter of 70, like so. And notice that we don't have an extrude button up here yet. That would be real nice to have an extrude or a cut extrude button. And I'll probably add those over the course of the semester, but for right now we don't have those buttons in this menu. But this can be easily edited, and I'm going to be working on that. So I'm going to go up here now, feature extrude, and let's get to kind of an isometric view here so we can see what's going on. And we're going to go a distance of 40 millimeters there and hit OK. Now, on this face out here, I can start a sketch, draw a circle, cut it through all, and then I'll draw a circle over here, dimension the location, cut it through all. I think you can do that. We did that in week 1. So I'm going to stop right there, okay? So let's throw that away, and we'll throw this part away. And let's look at the next assignment. Again, fairly simple parts. We're just getting started here. First decision you have to make on this part is what your base feature is going to be. We can't do this L shape because it's definitely not a regular, it's not a straight extrusion. If I look in this view, if I drew that L shape that would be out here on the right edge and extruded it, I'd have a kind of complicated cut to do here, especially with these rounded corners. So I don't want to start with this information. The question then is, do I start with this shape or do I start with this shape? And I'm going to actually start with this shape in the top view. So let's have a look. I'm going to slide this over, and let's start a new part. This one's 1 inch. And so we're going to go to the top plane and start a sketch. And I need this shape, so I'm going to go to the line tool, and I'll attach the origin right there. Now I'm going to draw this with square corners, which of course we're going to fix. Notice these two lines are black because they're attached to the origin. And so I'm going to put these dimensions in, which you notice are to sharp corners here. Okay? So we're going to go to that S tool and start the dimensions, and we're going to go 3 millimeters, or 3 inches, I'm sorry, and 5, and over here 2. And notice we're fully defined, but we're not done yet. Now, for these big rounded corners, we don't need to use the fillet feature, which we'll learn soon. Instead, I'm going to do a sketch fillet. Okay? So for large radius corners like that, we'll use a sketch fillet. For fillets and rounds on cast parts and things, we'll use a fillet feature, which we'll learn in the coming days. So here we go, fillet, sketch fillet. I'm going to set the radius right here at 1 inch. Now, you can do it AutoCAD style. You can pick this line and this line to get it in, or you can do it SolidWorks style and just pick the vertex. Both work. It's just half as many clicks if you pick the vertex. Notice it automatically puts the dimension in for me, and we'll just hit OK here. So there we go. And these arcs have an equal relation automatically from SolidWorks so that it only requires one dimension. Well, we have all the information there. Remember, we're going to cut the holes separately. So let's extrude that. Feature, extrude. And it is 0.95 thick. And we'll hit enter. Now, for this feature here, I'm not going to select a plane, and I try not to use the principal planes once I've gotten started. It gives us a little more flexibility sometimes. Instead, what I'd like to do is click on the back surface of the part to start my sketch. So I'm going to press and hold the middle wheel down on the mouse, hold the wheel down, and as I move my mouse, I'm rotating the part. I'm going to spin it around. Remember, I'm backwards now, right? This is the front. I'm on the back now. And I'm going to click on this face and start a sketch. Now, we'll hit the S key here, and I'm going to draw a line. Now, remember, we're backwards, so I'm actually going to come off of this corner straight up. And then I'm going to angle down. And then I need a vertical line here. Make sure you have that little vertical O-snap, object snap icon there next to your mouse. And then we'll close that. Now, I've intentionally gone all the way to the bottom instead of the top edge. You could do either. I just want you to see what happens. We're going to dimension this now. So let's hit the S key, dimension. And the height here to the sharp corner is 3.5. And the height here to the sharp corner is 2.5. And the width of this feature, I'm just going to take it down. Oops. Got ahead of myself there, 2.5. And then we'll take this down and make that 3.5. And now we have this rounded corner over here. So let's do that as a sketch fillet. It remembers the last radius value of 1, so we'll just leave that alone. Put that sketch fillet in there. Hit OK. Now we're going to extrude that. We can see that sketch is on the back. And so let's go to Feature, Extrude. Notice SolidWorks is always going to go the opposite direction on this one. Because typically it doesn't want to merge the solids. Its first choice will be to not do that. But that's what we'd like to do. So first of all, let's put the thickness in here, 0.45. And then we're going to reverse direction. And the reason I sketched this way is I just want you to know that in spite of the laws of physics, which say that two masses can't share the same volume at the same time, that in SolidWorks you can do that. So I'm actually extruding into this mass with new mass. But when I click OK, SolidWorks just absorbs that. So you can always do that in SolidWorks, and it just gets absorbed. It's still just one solid piece. Now all we have to do is cut holes, and I think you can do that. So you'll sketch on this top surface, draw a couple circles, equal relate them, horizontal relate the centers, and dimension them in and cut them through all. And then you'll do a hole on this face and you'll have to dimension this one. You can't equal relate it to the ones that are on the base. So you'll actually have two 0.75 diameter dimensions, but in the drawing it says 3x, so technically speaking, if you have multiple dimensions, that's okay. In a single sketch, you should use an equal relation rather than dimension them both. But because I've given you a 3x here, if you have multiple dimensions for that one in there, that's an okay thing in your model. All right, so I think you can finish this one up. And let's do one more model here in part one. This one has got a little work to it. This looks a little like one of the problems that was on the handout that we did when we were trying to figure out base features. And I kind of did that on purpose. But there's a lot going on here. So I think you'll remember that we really have to start with this angled shape here. So we're going to extrude that first, and then we can add this feature. And then we've got lots of cuts to do here. And I'm going to move pretty fast through this one because I don't want to give away all the fun. So let's start right here with that L shape. So inch drawing. So we're going to go new, inch part. We're going to start on the right plane. And I should mention on these parts, when you are working in SOLIDWORKS and I've given you a pictorial view like this, I need you to use this as your guide here. So if you're given a 3D pictorial view like this, might be an isometric or trimetric view, that has all the dimensions on it, and you need to decide what your base plane is going to be, then this will always be the rule. This will be the front view or front plane. This will be the right side view. This will be the top view. So when you look at this model over here, this is the right edge, this is the front over here, and looking down on it would be the top. Always use that rule for orientation. Remember, so 1 point deduct if your orientation is wrong. And the only way your orientation is wrong is if you pick the wrong plane to start your base sketch. So again, right side over here, front over here, top looking down. Okay, that'll be our rule for the week. So we're going to draw this angle shape on the right plane. Okay? So right plane, start a sketch. I'm going to go pretty quick here, and let's go about 4 inches. We'll go up at an angle. Oops, I knew I was going to do that. And then we'll come, I'm going to follow this witness line. See that yellow line there? It's kind of hard to see. I'm going to zoom up. There's a yellow line here. If I follow that, it's going to automatically create a perpendicular relation. Can you see it on my mouse there? If I skew it, it doesn't show, but if I follow that line, it's going to be perpendicular, and I want that to happen in that situation. I also want this one to be perpendicular, and if I follow that witness line again, it's going to do that. Do be careful. Don't follow those witness lines if you don't want the relation. Make sure you stay off of them unless you want that automatic relation. All right, now I want you to look at this part. Notice that there's a 1/4 inch dimension here for this corner. That would be this height right here. There is not a dimension up here for this edge, okay? So I don't want you to put that dimension in twice. So let's go ahead and start dimensioning this. And we're going to put the 1/4 inch here. And then this edge is 3 inches. Oh, we're going to Picasso here, so I'm going to have to fix that. I'm going to drag this out. And then we're going to do a dimension here. That's also 3 inches. I'll put the angular dimension in right here. And I just missed. So let's put that dimension in again. If you miss the line, it kind of messes you up. 120 degrees. And then I'm going to create an equal relation between these two lines, okay? Rather than putting another dimension in there. I only gave you one dimension, so I don't want you to put 2 in. So we're going to make those equal over here. And that gets me fully defined. Now I'm going to extrude that. And I'm going to go ahead and just extrude this in one direction, 4 inches. All right, so there's the start of my part. All right, well, I'm going to put this nose in first. So we're going to click on this little front face right here, right there. That's where I'm going to start my sketch. So I'm going to click on that face, and I'm going to start a sketch. And let's go normal 2. Remember, you can type a 9 here at KCC. You can type a 9 on the number pad to get normal 2. I'll use the button. All right. Well, it's a 1/4 inch wide down here if we look at this. But I think you can see, I'll click on this for a minute, that there's no location dimension from left to right. I'm not saying that's a good thing. In fact, that's a bad thing if you were designing a part, because there's nothing to measure if you were making the part. However, I did that on purpose. Again, I just want you to get in the habit of kind of creating relations and doing things like that. So there's no dimension over here, so we have to assume it's right in the middle. All right. So I'm going to begin with a center line. And I'm going to attach it to the midpoint of that edge and go straight up. And now notice that center line is black, so it's locked in place. It's locked to that midpoint. All right, now I'm going to sketch some lines here. Actually, let's start with a circle. I'm going to put the circle right on the end of that line. And then I'm going to draw some lines. So we're going to go from here straight down. If it wants to give you a tangent, touch it and then pull back down. And I'm going to come across and then go back up and touch again. All right, now that outside circle has a diameter of 1.25. If I trim this out, it will be an arc, and then it'll give me a radius dimension, and I don't have to mess with fixing that. So we'll hit the S key here. We're going to dimension this diameter at 1.25. And I'm going to dimension this width at 0.25. And while I'm here, I'm going to pick this circle and pick the bottom edge and get that dimension in, and I've got it off the screen here. It's 1.63. And let's get out of the dimension tool. Now I think you can see we have a bit of a problem here. We've got these two lines and they're kind of off center, aren't they? They can move around. And what I need to do, let's shift this just a little bit just to see the change, is I'm going to pick these 3 lines. This only works with a center line and 2 other objects. I'm going to pick this line, hold the control key down, pick this line, and pick this line. And we're going to do a symmetric relation. It's right there. Make symmetric. And it's going to evenly distribute those 2 lines around that center line. I'm fully defined now, but I'm not quite done because I have 2 separate loops here. I have to get rid of that. So we're going to trim. And I'm going to take out these 2 segments. Okay. Now I have a single closed shape. And we're going to extrude that. It's going the wrong direction, first of all, so we're going to flip it. And then you can see, I think, that we'd have a problem if we did that. I'd poke right through the back side. So you have 2 choices here. One, you can say up to next. That's the easy choice. Just takes it till it hits the next surface. That's really the answer. You could also go up to surface and actually pick that surface. But this works just great for us. Up to next for this one, and we'll hit OK. And there is that feature. Okay. Now, you could draw your whole circle right here, sketch on this face, draw the circle, cut it through all, because that hole goes all the way through the back. I'm not going to bother to do that. I'm going to move on to these 2 slots. So let's click on this face and start a sketch. If it helps you to go normal 2, you can do so. I'm going to type a 9. We'll go normal 2. We're looking straight in at that surface now. And I'm going to use the slot tool. Slot tool is right up here. We're going to do a straight slot here. I'm just going to click, come down, click, and then pull out for the radius and click. I'm going to do the same thing over here and pull out. Now, I've got some dimensions. Notice that almost all the dimensions are over here on the what I'll call the right-hand slot over here. So let's put these in. I have a radius of 0.25, so let's just type that S key. We'll get to the diameter tool. 0.25. And then it's 0.63 over, so I'm going to go from the edge to that center line. 0.63. And it's 0.88 from the corner up, so let's go from the corner up to the arc. 0.88. And then it's 0.125 height. I can just pick that line if I'd like, or I could pick the 2 arcs. 1.25. All right, this one's fully defined now. I'm going to get out of the dimension tool. Now we have to create some relationships here because I don't want to put another height dimension and all those dimensions over here on this one. The only dimension that I'm giving you twice is this spacing dimension. So let's do this. We're going to take the center point and the center point, and we're going to make them horizontal over here. I'm going to click out in space, then I'll take center point and control key and center point and make those horizontal. I need these to have the same radius, so I'm going to take the arc and the arc, and I'm going to make those equal. And now I think I'll just need a dimension from this edge to the center line of 0.63, and that slot now is fully defined, and the only dimension I'd add was that one. Everything else is controlled by relations. Now I'm going to cut those through all, so feature, extruded cut, through all, and we'll hit OK. Alright, so there's our two slots. Finally, we've got these kind of goofy arcs here. I'm going to zoom up on that a little bit so you can see it. On the bottom of the part, we've got these split circles here. And let's slide this over a little bit so we can see them on the surface of the part. You can kind of see what they look like there. So let's leave this up here nice and big and see if we can't get those in. So I'm going to spin around here a little bit. I'm going to click on the bottom, start a sketch. We'll go normal too. And let's draw a couple circles over here. I'll go ahead and draw them over here too. Right off the bat, I'm going to make these horizontal. And I'm going to make these equal, even though I don't know what size they are yet. And then make these equal. And I'm going to just go ahead and position them. So let's get a couple dimensions in here. Over to here. 0.93. And from here to this edge, 0.93. And I'll go ahead and go from the top down there, 1.25. Get those located like that. I'm not going to put these radius dimensions in yet. I'm going to put some more geometry in first. So let's draw a line from here straight down. Not quite where I want it, but that's all right. Double click, and we'll do a line from here straight down. Double click, and then from here straight down. Double click, and from here straight down. Make sure those are vertical. I'm going to move this around a little bit. We'll pull those in. All right. Now let's do some trims. So we'll trim out. Go ahead and take these out. Okay. All right, I think I can get some dimensions in now. So let's take this inside arc, and that one is 0.38, and this outside arc is 0.63. Now the distance here across is 0.25. However, I think we can see, let me move this. Anytime you have blue geometry, you're not sure what to do next, just drag it. Just move it around and see what it does. We can see that there's nothing holding it in the middle here. And there are no more dimensions, so we're going to have to do a symmetry relation again. So I'm going to type the S key here, and let's do a center line straight down from the origin. And let's get a symmetry relation between here and this line, just those three. These lines should be collinear, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. We'll come over here. I moved my mouse, so I'd lost the menu, and we'll make a symmetric relation there. All right, that fully defined this one. Now we got to make this one happy. So this is what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try, notice when I move this line, that the end point moves up and down as I move it from left to right. Do you see what I'm saying? The endpoint's moving up and down. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to take this endpoint and this endpoint and this endpoint, and I'm going to make them all horizontal over here. And that locks that right in place because this can only be in one spot once those are horizontal, and this should be exactly 1/4 of an inch. Now, we can test that just to see what we get, and you can see it's exactly 1/4 inch. All right. So that's how we can get that set up without fully defining it, or without adding a dimension or some kind of equal relation or whatever. All right, let's spin this around like so, and now we're ready to cut. So we're going to do an extruded cut. We need to be careful now. Let's hit through all here and tell me what you think. I don't think that's going to work. Let's go ahead and hit OK just for the fun of it. You can see that that kind of knocked the edge off my cylinder there. So that's not the answer. Let's edit that feature. So instead of through all up here, we're going to go up the surface, and I'm going to pick this top surface here and hit OK. Up to next may also have worked there, but I like to pick that surface. There we go. Finished part other than that hole, which pretty easy to cut. All right, I'm going to stop there with part 1, and we'll come back and look at the last couple of assignments in a second video. As always, enjoy.